we might start in a little bit slowly. I was just asking Emily about some of the roots of positive psychology, but I want to thank you all. Thank you all very much for coming here today, and thank you for taking some time out, because I know this isn't just for you. Maybe you'll be sharing some of this with your loved ones. Maybe you'll be sharing some of this with children or perhaps someone else's children. So thank you very much for taking this time out to learn about this very important subject that Miss Emily is about to get into. I've known Emily for a year or two, and I'm quite excited to hear about this, so I really don't want to talk too much. I really want to get into it. So with that, Emily, you've got the controls as well.
Yep.
Feel free to take the lead. If anybody wants to ask a question, do feel free to just jump off mute, and you want them to shoot as we go, Emily?
Yeah, so if you want to ask a question, either feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question, or just pop it in the chat box. I'm going to try and keep an eye on the chat box as we go. There will be a couple of documents and some links that I will share in the chat box as well, so that you can download them as you go. And I hope I've left a little bit of time at the end if you have any questions. Hang on. There we go. Hopefully you can see, oh, let me go backwards, sorry. Hopefully you can see a screen that says positive psychology. If you'd like to, you can keep speaker view, or you can just mute all the people and just hear my voice. I am going to just make it so that I can just see me. So welcome to today's after hours discussion with me. My name is Emily Johns, and today I will introduce positive psychology to you. Hopefully you will have some strategies you can take away with you. First, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Adrian and the Motivate community team for hosting this event and enabling this to happen today. And I know I saw Eshelita, who is a behind the scenes person, so thank you both for allowing this to happen today. As Adrian said, we've got about 90 minutes together today. We're going to learn a little bit more about positive psychology. It is a large branch of psychology, so I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm kind of just going to give you the highlights. How you can lead the good life, how harnessing your character strengths can lead to greater fulfillment in work and at home, and hopefully gain some practical tips on how you can incorporate positive psychology in your life. So my first question, how many of you have heard of positive psychology? Let me just put, got a few hands up.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you may have heard of it. I have recently completed a master's in positive psychology. I am by no means an expert, but it is a passion of mine, and it is something that I am really excited to share with you today. It is the study of happiness, optimism, subjective well-being, and personal growth. It is a branch of psychology proper, and as I mentioned earlier to Adrian, rather than focus on deficits, positive psychology focuses on what makes us happier and what can increase our well-being, so how we can be happier and how we can lead a better life. So in the next hour or so, I'll introduce some evidence-based strategies which you can take away and try yourself. We'll begin with a look into positive psychology, then go on to looking at emotions, what happiness is, how positive psychology interventions can help you increase your well-being, and how to find out your character strengths. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to ask questions, please either pop them in the chat box or just unmute yourself and ask as we go. I don't mind being interrupted. My day job is a teacher, so I'm constantly interrupted whilst I'm in full flow, so please feel free to interrupt as you see fit. I am an international coach using positive psychology and NLP in my coaching to positively impact and increase others' well-being. I've recently completed a course with Adrian, which was great, and that's for another time. I've also recently completed a master's degree from the University of East London via distance learning, and that's in applied positive psychology and coaching psychology, which is a little bit of a mouthful. My research was focused on positive psychology coaching with teachers. So, and as I mentioned, I am an educator. I'm a teacher in a secondary school in England, and I've previously worked in Shanghai for 2.5 years, which is where I met Adrian just over a year ago at a coaching boot camp in Shanghai. As I mentioned, I have coached teachers as part of my master's research, and I'm developing a program to help teachers thrive both in and out of school. Here is one of my favourite quotes about positive psychology from Sonia Lyubomirsky, who, if you know positive psychology, she's quite a big name. So happiness is not out there for us to find. The reason it's not out there is that it's inside us. I'm a strong believer in that we create our own happiness. If we wait for it to happen to us, then we're never going to be happy. So what is positive psychology? I've started off by saying it focuses on the looking forwards and what makes us happier rather than deficits. So in today's world, we are facing tough challenges in the form of a global pandemic, global warming, natural disasters, economic recession, homelessness, terrorism, and some countries even have war. So where does a science based on testing happiness, well-being, personal growth, and the good life fit into our world? So positive psychology and applied positive psychology, which is what I studied, seeks to expand the evidence base to increase personal and group well-being. It focuses on well-being, happiness, flow, which some of you may have heard of, personal strengths, wisdom, creativity, imagination, and characteristics of positive groups and institutions. Researchers all over the world specialise in different areas relating to positive psychology. So there might be positive psychology at work, in schools, in universities. People have even researched positive psychology amongst cancer survivors and in public services like the police and the armed forces. It focuses not only on individual well-being, but happiness and flourishing at group level. Professor Martin Seligman is considered to be the father of positive psychology. In 1998, he was elected the president of the American Psychological Association, and this is where he coined the term positive psychology. He proposed a new subfield with a focus on what's life-giving rather than life-depleting. His paper with Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, I can't say his name properly, but they are considered the founding fathers of positive psychology and flow.
Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
There we go. I can't say his name properly. I can spell it just about, but I can't say it. So one of the questions, and one of the fundamental questions of positive psychology is, can you measure happiness? So it's believed that happiness was subjective, and to a certain extent it is subjective. You know, what makes you happy and what, when you feel happy, might not be the same as somebody else. It can be hard to study and measure, and by creating and testing scientific measurement tools, and as well as experimental methods, scientists and psychologists have taken philosophical concepts of virtue and happiness and put them to rigorous testing. So it is a science. Sorry, gone too far. So it is a science, it's not just a self-help tool. It uses scientific method. Many of its techniques are evidence-based and have been rigorously tested in universities with big populations. And it uses scientific method to understand human thoughts, feelings, and behaviours. But rather than get bogged down in the science today, I want to give you some practical tips on how you can use positive psychology in your life to increase your well-being. So the first thing we're going to look at is the Wheel of Life. So you may have come across this before, or a version of this. I'm going to post the document in the chat window in a moment, but it looks like this. So the wheel here is split into 8 sections, and each section on the wheel is labelled, but you could label your wheel with whatever you want. Okay, so here we've got career, friends and family, significant other or romance, fun and recreation, health, money, personal growth, and physical environment. I'm going to pop it in the chat for you, and there are some other suggested categories underneath, which I will reveal to you in a moment. What I would like you to do, either on the screen or just on a piece of paper in front of you, is rank each section. So 10, so you've got 10 segments of the circle. You can draw it as a circle, you can just do a bar chart if you prefer. I want you to rank each section, with 10 being that you are the most satisfied, you're completely happy with it, and 1 being you are really dissatisfied with it, something you really want to work on. Most people, their areas will be somewhere between. Okay, so I'll share that with you now, and I can find the chat box. Okay, one moment. Sorry, guys. It worked a minute ago, and now I don't know what I've done with it. There we go. So the Wheel of Life exercise I've just posted in the chat box for you. Please feel free to open that or just draw this on your piece of paper you have in front of you. Take a few moments to fill in the chart. And here are the categories. If anybody has any questions whilst we're going, please feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat box. So I have used this in my coaching when I first started coaching a few years ago, and I was introduced to a different version recently. Adrian, is this something you've used before?
Yeah, not just before, I still use regularly. I use this so often. A new client. I haven't used it myself for a long time, but I was using this for many years.
So there is this, and there's also pillars of a good life or pillars of a perfect life or something like that. I prefer this format, but there are many formats.
Yeah, the simplicity of this shouldn't be underrated. This is incredibly effective, and this is an incredibly good, simple model. I just noticed, and I completely back this, career and finances being separate. Career and finances are and should be separate. Career being like the job or what you do, the finances. Someone might want to add in there, like the purpose of their life, or
absolutely.
They might write religion in there if they wanted to. They might even separate health. If you're working with a physical trainer, they might have health and they might have like body. That would be cool,
this is broken into 8 sections. You could even put 10 sections in there. The idea of this is to see which area you are spending, which area you're most satisfied with and which area you are spending most of your energy in. Okay, I'm hoping that everybody's had a chance to do that. Oh, someone is drawing on the screen.
Filling mine in.
That's okay.
Yeah, guys. So, by the way, some people can share on the screen, and what you might want to do is, like family and friends, you might want to draw a line like that, and that's how. That's right? Is it, Emily? That's how you're performing?
Yeah.
But then maybe a month later, you could be out here, and a couple of months later out here, and maybe that's good enough, and you just start putting energy into somewhere else. Absolutely. Yeah, by the way, so if anyone wants to, they can draw on the screen, but we're going to clear it all.
So
last week people were drawing by accident and they didn't know how to stop, and it took us 5 minutes to figure out how to clear the screen.
So hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. If not, please take time to look at it afterwards. I'd like to ask if the number on the number that you've put in each of the areas, if it represents how much energy you spend in that area. So for example, for me, work is going to be quite high. I'm pretty satisfied with my work at the moment, but that is where I spend most of my energy. Whereas if I were to look at fun and recreation or play, right now, England's in lockdown, so my fun and recreation is pretty low. So one way you can coach yourself to increase your well-being is you could, once you've done that, you can ask yourself these questions. So how do you feel about your life as you look at your wheel? Are there any surprises for you? How do you currently spend your time in these areas? How would you like to spend time in these areas? If your score is 5 or not less than 10, how could you make it a 10? And what would a 10 look like? Which of these categories would you most like to improve? Perhaps focusing on all 8 or all 10 might be overwhelming, but focusing on one area might seem doable. How could you make space for these changes in your life? And what help and support might you need from others to make changes and be more satisfied with your life? What change do you want to make first? You can't do everything first. What do you want to do first? And what is the smallest step you can take to get started? And finally, if there's one key action that will begin to bring everything into balance, what would it be? If there are any areas you are curious to dig deeper into, may I suggest that you have a conversation with a coach? I am a coach. I know lots of coaches. If you need any recommendations, please feel free to let me know. I'll also post these questions into the chat window unless somebody else wants to do it for me. So the next area I'm going to talk about is emotions. I'd like you to stop for a moment and reflect about the last time you felt really happy. Close your eyes and really focus on that time. So the last time you were really happy, what do you think of? What do you see? What do you hear? Take a moment to go back to that time. Focus on how you felt. Why did this time mean really happy? Spend a moment or two here. Try and amplify that experience. When you're ready, open your eyes and check in with how you feel now. During this short exercise, you connected with positive emotions. Through savouring, you can amplify the positive moments in life, which can in turn have a positive effect on our positive affect, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. Savouring is a positive psychology intervention, which can be used to increase our well-being. It means that we don't need to wait for the next big thing to amplify our positive emotions. We can linger in the happiness associated with being in nature, watching our children play, eating a favourite meal, and that's something we can do at any time, any place. Fully experiencing our positive emotions can have far-reaching and long-lasting benefits. Positive emotions are more than just simply feel-good moments. According to Barbara Fredrickson, who is a psychologist who studies emotions at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, I and a friend of mine had the pleasure of meeting Barbara Fredrickson at the Positive Psychology Conference last year, and it was inspirational. So her work considers each positive emotion a contribution to a positivity savings account. Savouring helps intensify and expand our connection to positive emotions. People who frequently experience positive emotions are more resilient, more resourceful, and more likely to form close ties with other people. In addition, they're more likely to function at optimal levels in their lives, no matter how they choose to spend their time. So how did you feel after taking a moment for that? Anyone?
Good.
How did you feel after taking that moment just to think about the last time you were really happy?
I went back to a time in Shanghai and I had a big smile on my face and I saw some friends there and some are in this room and it just felt nice and good.
And now you've got a huge smile on your face. Anybody else like to share?
I'd like to say that at my stage in life right now, I have difficulty finding times when I was actually happier. So it was quite difficult. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it could be that your really happy moment is right now, and that's great.
Yeah. And it's been this way for quite a while, but that's me. I mean, I've been doing, as you know, been doing coaching and coached myself and others for 12 years or more. So I've perhaps learned how to do it, and so I did find that bit. Didn't it? I found it very interesting doing this, and this. You know, I've done NLP mainly for coaching, so I'm new to positive psychology, but it all sounds very familiar, as possibly you could guess. So it's very interesting for me, and I'm having to try very hard to get under the surface of how do I make positives from something starting from a very positive standpoint. So
thank you.
The discussion for later, but maybe.
Thank you. Alicia, did you want to share?
Yeah, it's interesting because this last year, since January, I've actually had a lot more happy moments than I have in a long time, which is funny because my life has been more unstable than ever before. So, so it was interesting to me because I was thinking back and I'm like, oh, I could pick this time, or I could pick this time, or I could pick this time. And it was like, oh, the first thing was just something that happened last night, actually, well, early this morning. It's a long story. So like, I was like, oh, okay. Like, you know, for me, it was affirming. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Would anybody else like to share? Was that Darko?
Yeah.
To share that I was not in such good place, but when I start thinking about the going back and thinking about the moment when I felt happy, then my energy brings back and it feels good, really good. Thank you.
Fantastic. And you've also got a big smile on your face, which is
Yes,
lovely to
yes.
see. Would anybody else like to share?
I'd like to share.
Sharon?
Hello? Yeah, can I share?
Hi, please do.
The first picture come back to me in the moment I made decision I want to decline my job. So it's very interesting. The question brought me back to that the big decision I made, and I reflect now, and I still feel very happy about decision. So it's a kind of a echo the thing. I feel happy at the moment, at that moment, and I still feel very happy I made that decision. So it's kind of a reflection to me.
Great, thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Okay, if you feel like you want to share in the chat, please do so. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. Okay. So emotions are part of being human. An emotion can be defined as a psychological state defined by subjective feelings and also characteristic patterns of physiological arousal, thought, and behaviours. Emotions tend to focus on a specific event or circumstance during the past, present, or future. However, they are likely to be short-lived, and we're aware of them at the time of occurrence. Positive affect, which is A-F-F-E-C-T, not effect, is the extent to which someone experiences joy, contentment, and so on. Whereas negative affect is the extent that someone experiences feelings such as sadness or fear. This is something that's one of the measurement tools for positive psychology, measuring your positive versus your negative affect. Barbara Fredrickson created the broaden and build theory of positive emotions and in her positive emotions lab. She repeatedly tested and demonstrated that positive emotions broaden out thought action repertoires, undo negative emotions, and build resilience. So her top 10 positive emotions are the most widely researched, as well as experienced in daily life. So in order of occurrence, her top 10 positive emotions include joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, pride, amusement, inspiration, awe, and love. Love is unique in that it encompasses all of the 9 emotions and can be elicited through the presence of others. Therefore, love is arguably the most experienced human emotion. She makes it clear that emotions are individual and can be elicited at different times for different people. So again, I'd like you to just try and think of one of the top 10 emotions. They're on the screen for you now. Don't overanalyze it, just choose one. Everybody got one? So I'd like you to ask yourself these questions. When was the last time I felt this feeling? Where was I? What was I doing? What else gives me that feeling? Can I think of any more triggers? And what can I do to cultivate this feeling? So this is something you can take away with you. Again, I think someone's going to take a screenshot and post it in the chat for you. I can also share the slides with you afterwards if you wish.
Yes, I like that. Yeah.
Does anybody want to share how they feel?
I chose serenity.
Mhm.
It being probably the one I'm least able to create, because I live a busy life and have I've not taken time to find that
Okay.
because life's been going on. So I'm not going to do it now, but I'm going to try this after we've finished and see if I can find it. And I'll find the last time I really had it, and then, because I think that's one area that certainly my life could do a little bit more. I mean, I found it in when I've been perhaps to a church service or something like that, and you've got a moment to reflect. You're almost ordered to reflect at that moment, and that says a little bit about me, perhaps.
So this is something you can take away with you, and it might be that you're not able to do it right now, but please feel free to take that away with you and share with me afterwards how that felt.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a diagram of Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory. So you start with the positive emotions, you broaden those positive emotions out, which with the novel thoughts, activities and relationships. Build enduring personal resources, so for example, support, resilience, skills, knowledge, enhanced health and survival, and it's a spiral, it's an upward spiral, and the whole thing starts again. Her book is great. I would highly recommend that you read it if you haven't already had a chance and this is the first time you've come across it. So her research also shows that it takes 3 positive experiences to offset 1 negative experience. So scientists have discovered that it takes 3 positive to offset 1 negative experience. We can probably all remember negative things that have happened to us much clearer than we can positives. And according to Dr. Fredrickson, for every heart-wrenching negative emotional experience you endure, you need to experience at least 3 heartfelt positive emotional experiences to uplift you. She calls it the 3-to-1 ratio, and it builds collaborative relationship between your survival mind and your thrive mind. Positivity doesn't mean we should follow the axioms grin and bear it or don't worry, be happy. These are simply superficial wishes. Positivity runs deeper. It consists of the whole range of positive emotions, from appreciation to love, from amusement to joy, from hope to gratitude, and then some. As I mentioned, you're more likely to recall the time you fell out of a tree and broke your arm than all the times you safely climbed the tree, or the bad tasting medicine, as opposed to how you felt better. So you're more likely to remember the negative than the positive. According to Fredrickson, the potential for life-draining negativity lies within you, just as does the potential for life-giving positivity. You have more to say. You have more say than you think about which you feel and when. The treasure for your own positivity is waiting. So there are lots of ways to seek a 3-to-1 positivity ratio in your life. And here are 10 tips on how you can bring more positivity into your life to balance out the negativity bias. So you can rewrite the story of your negativity bias. During a period of uncertainty, such as the coronavirus, be mindful of how your fears fill in the blanks with previous history and the innate negativity bias that is rarely true. Changing the narrative prevents your emotions from colouring the facts. Look for the opportunity in the difficulty. Few situations are 100% bad. The negativity bias will cause you to automatically focus on the negative side of a situation. Train your mind to flip it. Focus on solutions instead of problems. Pinpoint the upside of a downside situation. Make an effort to focus on the good news wrapped around the bad news. Look for the roses instead of the thorns. Something I do as my role as a teacher, on Fridays we are supposed to discuss current affairs. I've banned my form from discussing anything negative, and it sometimes takes us a while, but we do manage to find a positive news story each week. And I believe that they are surrounded, young people these days are surrounded by everything that's going on, and it's quite easy to become overwhelmed and forget there are good news stories out there as well. So look for opportunity, look for ways to find the positive. Broaden your scope. Once you realise you have a choice of how to perceive and respond to a challenge, and that optimism is always present, even under the direst pressures, you can start to focus your mind more on the big picture aspects of situations and build on them. Broaden and build widens the span and boundaries of your mind so you can see more possibilities. You can expand your negativity bias's zoom lens into a wide angle lens, creating perspective that enlarges your range of vision. So flip Mother Nature's dictates. These aren't my words. Get in the habit of underestimating non-life-threatening concerns and overestimating your ability to overcome them. When faced with a setback, if you flip your perspective, you're less likely to develop a negative pattern of defeat. As you learn to accept life on its terms, instead of forcing the life that you want to have, you will scale the obstacles of resistance and lose your call less often and find the happiness that you've been seeking. Be chancy. You take small risks in new situations instead of predicting negative outcomes without sticking your neck out. Instead of settling into cozy ruts and routines of try new things. I don't know anybody at the party, so I'm not going to go, becomes, if I go to the party, I might meet a new friend. Don't let one negative event ruin your whole pattern. So you could say, I didn't get the promotion, so I'll never reach my career goals. So it could become, I didn't get the promotion, but there are many other steps I can take to reach my career goals. Nothing is permanent, and every situation can be changed for the better. Reach out to others. Small gestures during hard times can even give you a sense of euphoria. The obvious benefit when you reach out to help someone else is that you get a break from your own worries for a while. Contributing, giving, volunteering, donating, and performing small acts of kindness, no matter how small or brief, connect you to other people in a deeply meaningful, humane way. I experienced a tragic event earlier this year, and the amount of people that got in touch with me during that time really lifted me up and made me feel loved. And reaching out to others, I try to do this often, and I would highly recommend that you do that to others. And it comes back. Practice positive self-talk. After a big letdown, underscore your triumphs and high-five your tall comings instead of burgeoning yourself with shortcomings. Affirm positive feedback instead of letting it all roll over your head. Make sure to listen to all the positives as well as the negatives. Frame a setback as a lesson to learn, not a failure to endure. Ask what you can learn from difficult outcomes and use them as stepping stones instead of roadblocks. Think of a situation as happening for you instead of to you. And the final one is strive to see gains contained in your losses. So every loss contains a gain, but you have to look for it. Every time you get up just one more time than you fall, your perseverance increases the likelihood of propelling you up the career ladder. Baseball great Babe Ruth said, "It's hard to beat a person who never gives up. Every strike brings me closer to the next home run." There are many people that say that failure makes you better. Use that to push yourself forward. So what is happiness? Isn't this what we all strive for? The pursuit of happiness. From ancient philosophers to modern scientists, we're all searching for happiness. But how do you define it? What is happiness for you? And how do you know when you've found it? Anybody have anything to share? Okay. So positive psychology has traditionally conceptualized the authentic happiness as a mix of hedonic, so hedonic here, and eudaimonic well-being. So hedonic encompasses the pleasurable life. It encompasses feelings of positive emotions, which are further broken down into two categories, pleasures and gratifications. So pleasures could include nice smells, nice tastes, good feelings, and so forth. Whereas gratification could include activities such as reading or cooking, some that may require some forward planning. Whereas eudaimonic well-being is the engaged life and the meaningful life. This argues that well-being lies in the actualization of human potential. Researchers argue that there has to be more to life than just pleasure and satisfaction. It proposes that true happiness is found in the expression of virtue and doing what is worth doing. Eudaimonia is defined as fulfilling or realizing one's daemon or true nature. This occurs when one's life activities are most congruent with their deep values. So as Adrian mentioned with the Wheel of Life, what is your purpose? What do you feel most you doing? And here's a graphic for you. So authentic happiness Seligman argued that there are 3 routes to happiness. The first is the pleasant life, which enables high levels of positive emotion and gratification. Second is the good life, which enables constant absorption, engagement, and flow. And third is the meaningful life, where one uses one's strengths to the service of something greater than oneself. So the meaningful life and the good life fall under the umbrella of eudaimonia. One could argue, though, that you need an element of both hedonic and eudaimonic well-being to be happy. Okay, so now we're looking at tools to measure well-being and happiness, and I have another couple of activities for you to try. There are many tools that you can use to measure your well-being. Popular ones include the PANAS scale, which is the positive and negative activation schedule. It was developed in the 1980s and used across psychological and physical activity research. It's based on monitoring 20 emotion adjectives, so 10 positive and 10 negative. I'll pop that in the chat for you in a moment. It can be administered using different time frames. So you could do it right now. You could do it how you felt in the last week, how you felt in the last month, how you felt in the last year. The idea is that you take a measure, you do something to increase your well-being, and then you take the measure again. This is how many researchers measure their positive psychology interventions to see if they actually work. So the PERMA survey, PERMA is perhaps, those who are familiar with positive psychology, PERMA is kind of the underpinning of positive psychology, and it measures each of the 5 areas that Martin Seligman determined to be the pillars of a happy life. I'll move on to PERMA now. Let me just link in the chat for you. There we go, that's in the chat there for you now. So PERMA is the model of well-being. Professor Martin Seligman is considered to be the father of positive psychology. He's one of the world's leading researchers in positive psychology and human flourishing. He suggests that well-being is cultivated in the presence of our lives by positive emotion, so the right balance of heartfelt positivity to boost our resilience, engagement, the regular development of our strengths, those things we're good at and that we enjoy doing, relationships, so positive relationships, the creation of authentic, energizing connections, meaning, a sense of connection that is something bigger than ourselves, and accomplishment, the belief that and ability to do the things that matter most to us. So the framework is often referred to as PERMA, and it has been expanded by researchers to include PERMA H, where the H means health, and PERMA V, where the V means vitality. So there is the PERMA survey, and I will pop the link in the chat for you in a moment. There's a questionnaire that you can use. It's most often used in the workplace because that's where the most impact can happen. So it will outline which of the pillars you are highest in and which you score lower. So here are some suggestions on how you can increase your pillars. So P for positive emotions. You can laugh out loud. Take a few minutes to watch something that makes you laugh. You can get inspired, read a quote that inspires you and pop it somewhere you can see throughout the day. Or listen to your favorite song or a feel-good song to boost your mood. Engagement, I'm going to come back to later, but you could develop your strengths and amplify what you do best. Relationships, so be fully present. When you're talking to someone, turn your phone over, turn your emails off, and really listen. How many of us are guilty of not fully focusing on conversations? I know I have. I know when I've been taking part in Zoom calls, I'm always doing something else. At the moment when we're not able to meet people in person as often as we used to be able to, you need to think about how you can be fully present in that relationship. Check in. So check in on someone you haven't seen or talked to for a while and ask how they're doing. I challenge you to do that after the call today. Send a note. You could send a note of encouragement to someone you know who might be struggling right now, or even somebody who isn't struggling. Everybody likes getting snail mail nowadays. So for your meaning, find a passion project. If you have something that you don't often get time to spend, to dedicate some time to because work takes over, spend 10 minutes each day working on a passion project that makes your heart sing. 5-minute favors. Each day, take 5 minutes to help someone else out. Celebrate and support. Take time to celebrate people's learning, people's victories, and the difference that they make for others. And the final one, accomplishment. This is trickier. So find ways to celebrate your accomplishment, but also if you're not accomplishing everything you want to, ask for help. Let someone you know you are feeling a little overwhelmed and ask for their help and advice. Reset. So if you do feel overwhelmed, take a break. Get up, go for a walk, hit reset. And take one small step. So find one small step that you can build your confidence and move you forward towards your accomplishment. Oh, sorry. Went too far ahead. There we go. So now we're going to look at positive psychology interventions. So they are treatment methods or intentional activities that aim to cultivate positive feelings, behaviours, or cognitions. They are not programs, interventions, or treatments aimed at fixing, remedying, or healing something that is pathological or deficient. So this clearly differentiates between a positive psychology intervention and other mainstream psychological interventions. PPIs can often be used in therapy settings, but there's often other work that needs to happen there as well. So one way of increasing our well-being is through using positive psychology interventions. I've used these on myself and in my coaching. Many are evidence-based and have been tried and tested by researchers and psychologists. So there are over 100. The number changes constantly, but there's at least 50 that are evidence-based and that have been thoroughly tested as part of university research. So Sonia Lyubomirsky, in her book, The How of Happiness, proposed that there are 12 mechanisms that underpin PPIs. So there needs to be a good fit. In my own coaching, I suggested a positive psychology intervention that had worked for me and been quite successful, but it had the complete opposite effect for them. So you need to find one that fits with the source of the unhappiness, that fits with your strengths and fits with your lifestyle. As we are all individuals, what works for some may not work for others. So Lyubomirsky and her team concluded that there has to be a good fit with their interventions. And these are the 3 main criteria. They created the person activity fit diagnostic, which I'm going to share with you in the chat, which asks you to consider 12 activities and judge whether they feel natural or forced. And she found that people undertaking PPIs based on their person activity fit were more likely to do them and they were more likely to have an effect. So these are the 12 areas. So expressing gratitude, cultivating optimism, avoiding overthinking and social comparison, practicing acts of kindness, nurturing social relationships, developing strategies for coping, learning to forgive, increasing flow experiences, savouring life's joys, committing to your goals, practicing religion and spirituality, and taking care of your body. So I'll link that to you in the chat just now. If you need some help to decipher it, please feel free to get in touch and I can help you to do that. There we go. So I highly recommend it. Sorry.
Can I just ask, will these be available after the session is over in the chat?
They'll be available until I close the window, but I can send them to you separately. That's not a problem.
Yeah, that'll be good. Thank you.
Okay. So I would highly recommend, if you are thinking about doing some positive psychology interventions, that you take the person activity fit diagnostic just to find out what would work for you or what could work for you. One of the most common PPIs concerns gratitude. So how many of you have kept a gratitude journal before, or just been asked, what have you been thankful for? Yeah, I see some hands up. Gratitude is the underlying concept for many positive psychology interventions, as it promotes the savouring of positive events and may counteract hedonic adaptation, so where that we don't appreciate good things that happen to us. People who engaged in counting their blessings versus their burdens tended to experience more joy, energy, attentiveness, and pro-social behaviour. So Emmons and McCulloch were the first to do real research into this, and they named their research 3 good things. So I've put that on the screen for you now. Try it for yourself. So I'd like you to take a moment right now. For those of you in Asia, this is the evening. For those of us in Europe, it's kind of the middle of the day. So I'd like you to write down 3 things that you are grateful for. It can be done at the beginning, the middle, or the end of the day. And it can be recorded on paper, or you can use an app on your phone. I've used the Happy Feed app, but it's not essential. I would recommend that you do this for at least 7 days and make a note of how you feel. An extension of this is to reflect on why you are grateful for that thing. So rather than just saying, I am grateful for a nice cup of tea, you could say, I am grateful for a nice cup of tea because it warms me up and it tastes nice in my mouth and it gives me a break from what I'm doing. So just research does show that if you are qualifying why that makes you happy, why you're grateful for that, it can increase your happiness even further. So I want you to take a moment to note down 3 things you are grateful for right now. So feel free to share by unmuting yourself or just popping it in the chat. Yeah, it is something that you can do with students, with children, encouraging them to be grateful.
I'm sorry, can you share the previous screen again? I just wanted to take a photo of it.
I will do in a moment, Sarah, thank you. Thanks, Darko. So usually doing a gratitude journal, but sometimes forget. I do forget, to be perfectly honest. And when I did this as a practice, so one of my assignments for university was to keep a gratitude journal and measure the effect. And I've noticed that that had a huge positive effect on me. And even now, when I have times when I feel a little bit blue or a little bit disappointed, then I go back to a gratitude journal. Interestingly, the research does show that it can become more of a chore. You don't need to do it every day. You could do it once a week. You could do it for a couple of weeks and then leave it. But research does show that expressing gratitude can increase our well-being.
I try to do this. I make a lot of vegetable juice, and whenever I make a juice, I try to drink it slowly and appreciate it. And when sitting down having meals, you know, a lot of different. I try to think about where each of the ingredients come from. Like the tomato, how many people were involved in the tomato? How many people were involved? How many people were involved in getting the tomato to the shop, from the shop to there, from there to there, from all the way to my plate? How many people, you know, have contributed to making that tomato? And then there's what's next to the tomato, or a little bit of salt that's on top, and that just puts a massive smile on my diet.
So that's another way to take it one step further. I mean, I personally don't do that, but there's no harm. And if it's, as you say, you've got a huge smile on your face after that point. Thank you for sharing. So mindfulness has also been a popular buzzword for some time now. Meditation and mindfulness is included as a positive psychology intervention. I'm not an expert in mindfulness, so I'm not going to discuss that today. And I know there was an after hours discussion a few weeks ago on mindful coaching. Please go to the YouTube channel to watch Jeremy's talk if that is something of interest to you. So there are two other positive psychology interventions that you can try for yourself. You may want to take a screenshot of this slide. Two of them are intensely positive experiences. So think of the most wonderful experience or experiences in your life, your happiest moments, ecstatic moments, moments of rapture, perhaps from being in love or from listening to music or suddenly being hit by a book or painting from some great creative moment. Choose one such experience or moment. Try to imagine yourself at that moment, including all the feelings and emotions associated with the experience. And now write about the experience in as much detail as possible, trying to include all the feelings, thoughts, and emotions that were present at the time. So please try your best to re-experience the emotions involved. So some of these PPIs are written and very personal. If you keep a journal, this might be something you like to include in there. Another PPI that I've done myself is the best possible self. So think about your future. Imagine that everything has gone as well as it possibly could. You've worked hard and succeeded at accomplishing all your life goals. Think of this as a realization of all your life dreams, and now write about what you imagined. The bottom one there is can be used as a positive psychology intervention, and the way I did it is I wrote for 20 minutes each day for 4 days, focusing on this prompt. And you go into as much detail, even when you think you can't continue writing, keep going, keep writing, keep thinking of all the different little details that will have happened or what your life will look like if you are your best possible self. So please screenshot that if you feel the need to. So positive psychology interventions can be used in coaching sessions or for homework tasks or tasks between sessions. If you take the person activity fit diagnostic and want some suggestions, please feel free to get in touch. My contact details are on the end of the PowerPoint. Okay, so the final section, final area I'd like to talk about today is character strengths. So this section is based on the VIA character strengths. You don't need to have completed this survey beforehand. There is a link for the survey included. If there isn't, I'll make sure that it is. We each have several different types of strengths. You might know what you are naturally good at. You might not be able to identify that or think that that's a thing. But we all have several different types of strengths. Talents are what we do naturally well. Skills are what we train ourselves to do. Interests are what we choose to do. Interests reflect our passions and the things that we are inherently drawn to. Values reflect what we internally hold dear. And resources are the external supports that we draw on. But it's character strengths, these core qualities that are essential to our identity. They are the fuel to make the other strengths rise. Character strengths enable us to put our values in and what's in our head and our hearts into action. And when you tap into your character strengths, you're being your authentic self and expressing your best qualities. This can help you take your other strengths to the next level. For example, you may have an incredible talent for athletics, but you need the character strength of perseverance and self-regulation to become an Olympian. Studies have found that the development of our character strengths come with many benefits, including improvements in engagement, creativity, and satisfaction with work. Your signature strengths, which are your top 5 character strengths, are most central to who you are and best capture your uniqueness or essence. They are also energizing to use and more natural to express. Across several studies in different cultures, the strengths of zest, hope, love, gratitude, and curiosity are most correlated with life satisfaction and are often referred to as the happiness strengths. Your lesser strengths or bottom strengths, so they're typically your bottom 4 to 7 strengths, are not viewed as weaknesses, but as strengths that are either underdeveloped, unrealized, not as valued as other strengths, or at least less used compared to your other strengths. So my bottom 2 strengths are perseverance and self-regulation. And those of you that know me know that that sums me up completely. And I have stopped calling them my weaknesses, but my bottom strengths. They are things that I can develop. and there are things that I can do to increase perseverance and self-regulation in my life. I highly recommend that you take the character strengths survey. It is free. It gives you a rank from 1 to 24, and it might be quite enlightening. So here is a table of the strengths. There are 24. They are split into 6 categories, 6 broad virtues. So wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. So they were created by a team of leading social scientists who scoured the world for ways to identify, measure, and develop what is good in people. The VIA survey identifies your character strengths. The positive personality traits reflect what is good, moral, practical, valued outcomes, and authentic about you. So the 24 strengths fall under 6 broad virtues. So within wisdom, you've got within wisdom, you've got creativity, curiosity, judgment, love of learning, and perspective. Courage, bravery, honesty, perseverance, and zest. Humanity, kindness, love, and social intelligence. Justice, fairness, leadership, and teamwork. Temperance, forgiveness, humility, prudence, and self-regulation. And transcendence, so appreciation of beauty and excellence, gratitude, hope, humour, and spirituality. They are how you like to go about your work, regardless of whether anybody pays you or recognises you for it, because they are aligned to the values you hold. It is also important to note that whilst your strengths exist within you, they are also shaped by the situation you're in, so they will move around a little bit, and it's recommended to take the VIA survey annually. So I don't expect you to have taken it already, but if I do, however, recommend that you take it afterwards. And if you want any help with it, please feel free to get in touch. I'm just going to leave that for a moment if anybody wants to screenshot that. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce you to a couple of strength-based strategies that you could use to boost your strengths. So you could develop a strength habit. So most of our habits, both good and bad, are created automatically, beyond our conscious awareness. Making a small change in your behaviour sounds quite straightforward. Yet many people are so overwhelmed that even when they understand how developing their strengths will make the job easier and more enjoyable, they lack the daily mental space and energy to start. Quite simply, it's easy to get lost in autopilot and our daily habits. So consider a character strength you'd like to build up, such as creativity, for example. You're going to create a cue, such as anchoring it to a habit that you already do, like getting out of bed. You're then going to create a new routine around this. And finally, you're going to give yourself a reward to develop this habit and make it happen for you more regularly. The next strength-based strategy is imagining your best possible future self. So I talked a few moments ago about a PPI that you could do as a written task. To enhance this, you could include your character strengths. So looking to the future is an important pathway to setting goals that are personally meaningful. It can give you perspective on the direction you want to go in. Linking character strengths with this imagined life can supercharge your goals. So take a few moments and select a future time period. So in 6 months' time, in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and imagine at that time that you are expressing your best possible self. Everything has gone as well as it possibly can be. Visualize your best possible self in a way that is pleasing to you and that you are interested in. Imagine the details closely. You might think of this as reaching your full potential, hitting an important milestone, or realizing one of your life dreams. Reach high and be realistic. After you have a fairly clear image, write about the details. Writing about your best possible self, writing it down helps you to create a logical structure for the future and can help you move from the realm of kind of foggy ideas and fragmented thoughts to concrete and real possibilities. Write about your character strengths. Write about the strengths that you observe in this image and in what you've written. What character strengths will you need to deploy to make this vision a reality? Write down your specific goal and action plan as a result from this exercise. So by utilising your character strengths, you can lean into what you do well to supercharge your goal. You can narrow this goal or focus onto a specific area. You could narrow this best possible self down to what it looks like at work. I am a teacher, so what it would look like at work with my students. Or you could think more broadly about what it looks like in life if you want a career change, for example. So here's an example for you. I see myself doing work that is meaningful and fills me with a sense of purpose as I help people reach their dreams on a daily basis. I will use my love of learning strength to return to training, to study new topic areas. I will use my social intelligence to network with people in the helping profession and stay open to emerging pathways that might broaden my experiences. So my challenge to you is, how are you going to make this happen? So that is the end of the main part of my presentation. In this session, I have introduced positive psychology. I've talked about emotions, introduced a couple of measurement surveys for wellbeing, looked at positive psychology interventions, and then I've finished with the VIA character strengths. If you would like to discuss any of these further, my contact information is on the next slide. I am in the process of setting up a website, but you can also find me on Instagram, WeChat, Facebook, LinkedIn, or you can contact me via email. Here are some of the resources that I've used. The How of Happiness, Flourish, Positive Psychology. This is one of the books that I would highly recommend if you are a beginner and want to know more about it. It is quite academic, but lots of references. And Barbara Fredrickson's book on positivity. Here are also some links. I'll link them in the chat for you as well. And the final slide for you is my contact information. So thank you so much for taking the time to come today. I really appreciate it. This is although I I teach on a daily basis. This is the first time I've held a talk for such a long time. So if you're still here and still listening, thank you very much. I'm going to close the PowerPoint, and then there is still some time for questions if you have any. Please feel free to pop them in the chat or just unmute yourself and I'll do the best I can to answer them. Thank you very much.
Yay.
I have some questions. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's a lot of information. I have a very simple question about journaling.
Yes.
I see people, let's say, got to do some kind of motivation journal or your dream about what happened, what you did went well, why, and what would you want to do better, how, whatever. And all these things I want to write it down.
Okay.
But do you keep the journal separately for each purpose, or do you just put it together? I just found it myself feel difficult to filing all these journals. I don't know.
So I don't actually journal. It is something that I've been meaning to do for a while, but I don't journal. If you are going to journal, I would recommend just keeping one. Keeping it in different sections, it's too much. Just make sure you have a title. Don't think of it as homework. Oh, today I've got to write in my goals journal. Today I've got to write in my gratitude journal. Keep them all as one and just have different headings.
Okay. So I wonder, do people really go back to look at the journal?
Some do. Some do. I attended a bullet journal talk in Shanghai August last year, I think. And it was used as kind of a bullet journal where it looked all fancy with all the pages set out, but she also used it as just a journal where she had pages and pages of writing. And she said that sometimes she did go back over it and found that it was quite inspirational. If you think, particularly if you date your journal and you think, oh, how was I feeling at that particular moment? It can be quite interesting to reflect back on that time. But as I say, I personally don't keep a journal.
Can I just say something with this? It's something in the act of writing it down in itself, whether you refer back to it or not, is very useful, very helpful. Yeah. So it's just the writing it down. It gets it from a place inside you to a place outside. And that in itself is very revealing.
I totally agree with that. writing it down. So a lot of people tend to do a brain dump at the end of the day. So things that they're thinking about that might be causing them some issues, they put it down on paper. It gets it out of their head and on paper so that they can have a relatively good night's sleep. So just the act of writing, even if you don't go back to it, could be quite beneficial. Try it, and then you can share with us how you get on.
Okay.
Anyone else have any comments or questions they'd like to share?
I've got a few, probably academics, and maybe not for this forum. It's where positive psychology came from. Maybe I need to read the history, because I'm competing in my mind with NLP, because that was my first psychological intervention.
So Adrian's also from an NLP background. So maybe you two should have a chat. But I didn't go too much into the academics here. I wanted it to be kind of a bit of practical, but I'm more than happy to have a look and delve deeper into that with you.
Yeah, NLP's got a pile of stuff that would fit nicely in the positive psychology, very nicely.
Yeah, the big problem with NLP is its name.
Yes, and it's not evidence-based. It's based on not evidence.
I think people from coaching and NLP probably took it to the next level. And my master's is combined in positive psychology and coaching psychology. So it's looking at coaching, and a lot of which is NLP, looking at it from an academic point of view. So I've always said that I've come to coaching from an academic perspective, and now I want to put those tools, and use it more practically. And I really believe that positive psychology and coaching are kind of natural partners.
One thing I feel that wasn't, I mean, it may be in this technology, but rapport is a huge thing with NLP. It's almost, that is the foundation of everything to do with, and yet there wasn't any mention of that here. And that's rapport.
There is in the relationships. There is in the relationships part of PERMA, but I didn't go too much in detail with that. So it was kind of like a surface level. My master's was 2 years long, so I tried to condense it into 90 minutes.
Yes, indeed. Touche. Yeah.
Yeah, I love sometimes where I hear the term evidence-based, and sometimes I see in the maybe wiki or something that NLP isn't real and it's pseudo or something like that, yet then I see it coming out in other areas, Rapport wasn't scientifically proven, but 30 years later they got mirror neurons.
I think NLP isn't evidence-based because nobody has taken the time to create an evidence base for it. But I think that certainly people's results speak differently.
Mm-hmm. And may I ask, do you personally use some of Mihali's work, the flow and that?
I have, not in huge detail, but I have used some of it. So the PERMA does relate to flow. So I haven't used it as explicitly as referencing his work, but a lot of the positive psychology interventions do try and increase flow. That's one of the 12 categories. So whilst not explicitly, yes, I probably have.
I'd love to have a session on that sometime in future. Yourself revealing and talking about getting into flow states or getting into flow or combining it all. I'd love to see that sometime.
Anyone else would like to ask any questions?
Not loads, but later.
No problem.
Come on, guys, do feel free.
Yeah, we've got another 15 minutes, or you can have an early leave if you prefer. I've put a couple of links in the chat for you. So the first one is the positivity ratio. I did look that one up yesterday. Some of the links are outdated, but it still has a link to Barbara Fredrickson's work. The PERMA H survey is mostly work-based, but I still think that it's a valuable survey if you wanted to take it. And then you've got the VIA character strengths. You do have to register an account, but it is free, and I've never been sent anything from them kind of spam-wise. And that can give you your character strengths. I have my character strengths printed out in front of me here. This comes out on 3 pages, and I do regularly refer back to it. So I know that my top strength is perspective, and I know that helps me a lot when I lean into my strength of perspective. But I also know that my bottom strengths are ones that do need developing. Any more comments? So I can share my contact details again with you, and please feel free to get in touch. My LinkedIn, so I've got a Facebook coaching page. It is brand new, so please don't be put off by that there's nothing on there. If you can't find it, let me know. There's an email address. Let me just share this with you again. This one. So this is there for you if you wish to get in touch. The bottom one is WeChat, so you feel free to connect with me on WeChat if we're not already friends. I haven't shared my personal phone number, but if you want to contact me by phone, just drop me a line somewhere else and we can have a chat. If there are no further questions, then...
No, I do. Emily, you've been in this for a while, and you've done some training with Chris and I, and you've done other good training.
Yeah.
So may I ask, for when you're helping other people or when you're servicing other people, what do you think might be one of the best takeaways or a couple of things for the coaches in the house?
One of the best things I've used in my coaching has been looking at the VIA strengths. It is better if you do some research around it, but you can also do it with just a very surface level understanding of what the strengths are. So finding out what your top strengths are and leaning into them. I didn't include it today, but there are a few questions that if I do use strengths in my coaching, that I ask, things like, think of a time, or how can you think of a time when you've last used it, or how can that help you to reach your goal? So for example, if I were to be coached about my career, for example, my top strength is perspective. So if I were my coach, I would ask myself, so leaning into your top strength of perspective, how can you use that to move yourself forward? And I also think I have used in my teacher wellbeing program, I have used the person activity fit diagnostic, and the participants in my program really enjoyed the homework tasks. I know people don't enjoy homework, but they enjoyed being, something being evaluated, and sort of being suggested what things they could do. So the way I use that is I get them to do it, we talk around it, and then I analyse their results and give them some suggestions on what positive psychology interventions they could do. So 2 or 3, and they try them, and then the next session we'll talk about how they found, how easy they were to do, and what impact they felt that they've had on their happiness or their well-being.
Okay, for the coaches in the house, I'm just thinking it wouldn't be too hard to have a client do the VIA, get their 24 strengths, whatever one they're strongest at or weakness at, you could talk about, and you could probably anchor that quite easily.
Absolutely.
And then in the session, you could strengthen the anchor and perhaps add in additional resources and fire that up a few times.
Absolutely.
You could even retest those anchors each week and strengthen them over the following weeks.
Definitely. And something that a fellow coach, when we were doing a peer session, did with me was link a top strength to a lesser strength to try and pull the bottom strength up. And that I found that really powerful. So my top strength of perspective, linking it to perseverance, linking those together was really powerful. And actually, I think my perspective I did this back in June, I think. And I think even since then, it may have increased.
Yeah, beautiful. Stacking or chaining or putting them linking them together, one triggers the other. Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Any other questions? No, thank you everybody for coming. I've really enjoyed this morning, and I hope you have learnt something. As I say, please feel free to get in touch if you have any questions, either through me or through Estrelita or Adrian, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you.